Chapter 3 A Missing Key. Morning came way too soon, yet this time Hella woke to Senna's urgent voice. "Hella, get up! You're still sleeping! We have to get ready!" came Senna's frantic yet hushed voice. What? What's going on?" she replied groggily. "Why are you shaking me?" "You're still in bed! The floors woke me up 5 minutes ago! Yours aren't on for some reason," Senna whimpered. Hella tried to get her bearings while making sense of the gibberish Senna was spitting at her. "Floors aren't on? What do you mean?" she thought as she looked down at them from her bed. Sure enough, they weren't lit where they should be bright and pulling her out of bed. Suddenly, it all came rushing back as she snapped fully into consciousness. Last night! The lighting orb! She frisked her bed to find the spherical object from last night's commotion, locating it in seconds. Grabbing it with both hands, she hopped out of bed and flung open the window shutters to hold it in the morning light. "I knew it! It's an orb, all right!" She whipped around and pointed to the ceiling. "It fell from right there, over the side of my bed." Senna examined the portion of the roof that was clearly missing its orb. "You're right!" Then Hella pointed down and squealed. "Look! It hit the floor right here! You can see where it broke the asperite. That must be why the floors didn't wake me this morning. The orb fell and broke where the floor lights up in the morning. The cursed floor is broken," she concluded with glee. All of this detective work took less than a minute to put together once Hella had the orb in hand, which was good because immediately after her realization, Goden barked from the hall. "Hella, get your brother for prayer, we're all waiting." The two siblings locked eyes. A mixture of shock and excitement was clear in both of their faces. Despite the late night they'd both had, this unexpected curiosity had woken them up like a slap in the face. Hella put the orb under her pillow, then both her and Senna rushed out towards the common. "Good, you're here at last!" Goden was standing in his usual spot. In reality, they weren't that late at all, barely a minute. But the morning prayer was one of the most important things to Goden. He would be in a terrible mood all day long if he missed it. So he acted as if every wasted second was a personal insult. Sorry, it's my fault, Goden," Hella said in a rush. "Well, nothing could surprise me less than that." "Yeah, is there ever going to be a morning where you're on time to prayer?" Farah snarked, as if anyone had asked her. "Just lick his boots and save your breath," Hella lashed back at her. Senna snorted. Hella looked at him out of the corner of her eye and grinned. "Moments! We have moments, you two! Gather close and hold shoulders," Goden ordered. "O blessed Grom, matron of love and the unvanquished flame." Hella was distracted by the happenings of the morning. The floor malfunctioned. It didn't pull me awake. How much of the floor did it affect? Not enough to change Senna's room, because the asperite pulled him awake. "Grom's love," everyone chanted. Grom's love," Hella murmured, hoping no one had noticed. They had. Goden's disapproving glare was cut short as the gate doors to the common opened. "Theutons of Call 19, assemble!" came the regular call of the Peaceman escort. Their morning march along the Asperite Causeway was only half as long as the day before, which meant the blessing wouldn't be near the inner round this time. As the doors to the right side of the causeway opened, the glowing floors marched 4 of the 5 Theutons to meet them. Only Senna stayed behind. It was his day for enlightenment, so he would be taken to another door that led into those chambers. The Peaceman called out to the remaining members of Call 19. "You 4 will all be at grid 414G. There's a jammed filth compactor. Tools will be provided on site." At that, the 4 were marched through the open gates. Hella threw a glance over her shoulder at Senna before they were both separated. She sensed a look of eagerness in his eyes for when they could continue the investigations of the morning. Before then, though, she had to get through a day of Goden and Farah snipping at her. Time couldn't move fast enough. They soon arrived at grid 414G, though nothing about this portion of Epole belied the ostentatious decadence of the inner round they had experienced the day before. Everything from the architecture to the drab colors spoke of a humbler, poorer daily existence. There was no lack of grime in these streets and their walls. However, Hella soon realized she would much prefer to clean every inch than what was in store for Blessing today. The filth compactor. It was located underground, beneath the streets. This was probably as much an architectural design as it was an aesthetic one to hide the smell. though the closer they got to the understreet entrance, the less anyone could make that claim. The stench was putrid and palpable. Hella covered her mouth as the air got warmer and more humid. Every breath felt more like slurping the rank air as she descended the steps into the understreet. "Did they give us any masks or cloths for our mouths?" Hella asked Goden, who had grabbed the requisite satchel of tools for the job. "Ha! As if they would waste those on us. Just breathe through your mouth until you can't smell it anymore." As if that's going to help, Hella thought. The smell was only half the issue. Now she could almost chew the air when she breathed through her mouth. "You'll get used to it. Don't be a baby," came the expected, unsolicited advice from Farah, who was behind Hella and grimacing with her hand over her mouth. Hella was ready to check out already, stuck between a rotten filth compactor and a rotten suck-up. She couldn't decide which was worse. They found the machine and the jam. "All right, we can fix this. It doesn't look that bad. But we need to work together and communicate," Goden stated firmly. "These machines work by chopping up big filth into tiny pieces. Something's clogging the blades. We'll need to locate and remove that chunk. But understand me well. If we do, and the chopper has any extra chop left to spring forth, you'll be the next filth it compacts." Hella, Farah, and Talon all gave a solemn nod. "Okay then, Talon, I'll need you with me. The two of us will take these metal spanners and pry up against the lip of the top gear. It'll take the two of us to move it, and it won't like what we're doing. At that point, Farah, Hella, I need the two of you to take those rakes and pull as much of the jammed up filth back from the blades as you can." "Are you sure the machine is off?" Hella asked. Farah snorted through her hand. "What a stupid question. Of course it is. Goden already turned it off when you were whining about the smell." Hella had decided. It was Farah. She was worse than the filth compactor. Maybe she'll slip into the blade she's so sure aren't on. She's no better than the filth inside it, Hella thought devilishly. Each of the four grabbed their tools and moved into their designated positions. "It's going to take some real muscle to move this thing. Once Talon and I have backed it up even an inch, start raking the jam back. We may only be able to hold it for a short time," Goden explained. "With that in mind, before we let it go, I'll give the warning, coming down. Understand?" "Okay, got it," Farah replied. "Get your rake ready, Hella, and don't get in my way." "Wouldn't dream of it," Hella said. "Here we go, girls. Are you ready, Talon?" Goden checked. Talon nodded. "On 3. 1, 2, 3. He grunted with the final count, and the gear started to groan as the two Thutan men strained against its stubborn protest. Hella lunged her rake forward to make purchase on the loosened filth pile. But as she did, Farah's rake intercepted hers at the same spot on the pile. "Hey!" Farah shouted. "Get out of here! Pick another spot, you idiot!" "Me? I'm raking right in front of myself. Why are you crossing my rake?" "Girls, cut it out!" Goden hollered, his arms shaking against the strain of the gears. Hella went to pull her rake back, but its tines had caught between Farah's, pulling her forward. "Hey!" screamed Farah, who caught her footing against the filth pile, then ripped her own rake back. "You cow!" Hella's rake flew out of her hands with that motion. Now, Farah had both rakes twisted together, rendering them useless for the task at hand. "Coming down!" Goden grunted. The gears snapped back against whatever was jamming them. Before Goden could face the two girls, they had already begun bickering. "Of all the thick-headed, idiotic things you could have done," Farah started. "Are you kidding me? The first thing you did was block my rake and tangle it up with yours," Hella accused. "You almost pulled me into the gears, you thoughtless lump! You saw her, Goden! She tried to kill me the first chance she got!" Farah shouted as she looked up at Goden. "Hella! Farah! Both of you shut it!" he rasped. "You have the easiest part of this blessing. Stop making it so hard. Spread out more. Pick a different spot and let's clear this cursed jam this time. Talon and I can only lift these gears back so many times. Don't waste our efforts here or we may all miss our meals tonight." Both girls were still glowering at each other, but they both gave a brusque nod. Farah separated the tines from the two rakes and threw Hella's rake back at her, who caught it cleanly and gritted her teeth. Both girls followed Goden's directions and spread out some more, awaiting his say-so. Goden and Talon both gripped their spanners and braced their feet. "Are you two ready this time?" Goden asked. 1, 2, 3! The gear once more groaned its disapproval as the two men heaved it backwards. This time, both Hella and Farah started aggressively raking at the jammed-up filth pile. Hella lunged and pulled over and over without regard for her frustrated rake mate. After half a dozen pulls, though, a warm, wet, festering glob of filth suddenly hit her in the side of the face. "Oh!" She spat vigorously and dropped her rake in the process. This time, though, it landed against the choppers. All the commotion distracted Talon, who released his spanner's tension. Goden fell to one knee under the unexpected pressure, and the gears snapped back once more, shooting his spanner 10 feet away into a puddle. "Farah! Did you throw a glob of filth at me?" Hella shouted. "You were raking filth all over me, you blind rat!" "Girls!" Goden roared. "What in holy Grom's mercy is wrong with you two?" Before Hella and Farah could present their cases, Goden continued. "Never in all my years have I seen such blatant and reckless stupidity. There couldn't be a worse time to peck at each other than when Talon and I are trying to open the jaws of a thrashing machine you're both standing in front of." Hella tore her death glare away from Farah's eyes and located her rake next to the chopper blades. She walked over to it, grabbed it by the handle to lift it up, but it was stuck. The slipping gears had pinched the rake's metal head between the choppers. She tugged it harder. Nothing. So she grabbed it with 2 hands and started to heave. "Stop that, Hella! It's jammed with the rest of the filth now," Goden chastised. But Hella either didn't hear him or didn't care. She bit down on her teeth, braced her legs, and arched with her back as she strained with all her strength. "Hella! Hella, quit that!" Goden yelled louder to get her attention. Just as he was about to step forward and remove her physically, the sound of the gears groaning echoed in the understreet again. But no one was levering the spanners this time. Goden's jaws widened as a bright red glow emanated from Hella's eyes. It was intensifying and fast. Her chest began glowing radiantly, then suddenly, boom! The rake launched out of the choppers, and the gears spun a full half cycle in reverse, spitting most of the filth pile out of them with the release of energy. For a fraction of a second, the entire understreet was silent but for the echo of the initial boom. Then, the slow creak of the filth compactor blades moving forward under their weight filled the claustrophobic space. The rake was free. The choppers moved freely, and all 3 Theutons stood there, transfixed by Hella, whose eyes still simmered with a dull red glow. "What in soul's peace is going on down there?" The voice of the peaceman on duty above the understreet rang out down the steps. Goden panicked, then shouted back, "Apologies for the noise, vital peaceman of soul! We, the condemned of Cull 19, have rectified the jam in the understreet filth compactor." Goden began praying under his breath that the peaceman wouldn't come down the steps to witness what the rest of them had, as Hella stood there, her eyes still smoldering in the corner of his vision. "I'll contact the engine room to make sure it's running properly on their end. Turn it on down there. As long as you haven't broken anything, I'll allow you all back up and consider your blessing accomplished." "We await your truth," Goden replied. He then spun back towards Hella and rushed to grab her by both shoulders. She seemed locked in an almost trance-like state of anger. Farah and Talon watched in silence as Goden placed his forehead on Hella's and began to speak in a low, calming tone. The tone was so low, in fact, that it seemed to be coming from below his belly and resonating out of him like some deep baritone instrument. They all watched as Hella's glow dissipated, snapping her out of the trance. Her demeanor changed from one of uncanny determination to somewhat discombobulated embarrassment. "Crom's love," Goden murmured in relief. "You're back." The peaceman's voice wafted down the stairs once more. "Condemned of Cull 19, your blessing is confirmed completed. Gather your tools and get yourself above ground for inspection." Goden looked to Talon and Farah, neither of whom had uttered a word yet. "Do as he said and gather the tools. All of them, even the bent rake. We can explain that as part of what dislodged the jam." Both of them remained frozen, staring at Goden. "I know, I'll explain once we're out of the city, back in the call," he said. "Just for now, start moving and act like nothing unusual happened. Our future depends on it." Farah finally shook herself from her frozen state and raised her hand towards Goden, finger outstretched. "Goden, your chest." When he looked down, his chest was also glowing a dull red beneath his shirt, just as Hella's had been moments ago. He swung around and began chanting to himself in the same deep tones he had with Hella moments before. Without turning to face them, he repeated his order. Collect the tools. Hurry. I'll explain later. The heavy doors of Cull 19 clunked shut behind the 4 returning Theutons. They had been hosed down after coming up from the understreet filth compactor and escorted back with their meals after completing the blessing. Even after everything that transpired from the morning escort till now, they were back sooner than expected. The peacemen from Grid 414G, having no other orders for their condemned in the schedule, had sent them back and taken the rest of the day off themselves. Oddly though, when they had all returned to the common area of Cull 19, they saw Senna back from his enlightenment session as well. If they were returning early, he was very early. Senna popped off the bench. Hella, you're back! He hollered as he ran up towards her. Something strange happened today in enlightenment. Farah interrupted. Your story's gonna have to wait, kid. She looked over to Hella, then directly at Goden. We're back now. I want to know what in the name of Grom happened down there today. Goden sighed and said, Come and sit, all of you. I can't hide these truths from you any longer. Notes from the Acolyte. The causeway system that connects every Theuton call to every grid within a pole is a self-enclosed, windowless tubular network. Its interconnectivity, self-containment, and aspirite-encrusted floors make it a key mode of control and distribution of slaves throughout the capital. The only ways in or out of these causeways are through the aspirite-controlled gates at either the exit of the call or the entrance to a city grid.